transparency, specifically loot transparency. Should there be loot transparency? Along with most people, I believe the encounter rate of the boss, and this is from Southern Reaper on the forums, from the boss should be used as a guideline on drop chance. However, I also wanted to emphasize that transparency in those drop rolls should be put out in some form or fashion. Whether it be through a drop table we can check for the specific rates, or through a general guide like common, uncommon, rare, etc. given to us. If the rates are known, I feel like that helps in making a decision on if the boss is worth grinding for that one particular drop for people, or if they would be better off going to grind a smaller or a similar drop with a higher drop rate somewhere else. For instance, if a boss has a blueprint for a sword that drops at a rate of 1 out of 256 rolls, but respawns every 6 hours, or another boss drops a similar sword blueprint at a rate of 1 out of 50 but spawns every 48 hours, then people can make a more informed choice on which one they would want to spend their time on. Now, I have my opinions on this, but I want to hear yours.
So it's very weird that this is a topic, because we over at the Envious Discord right before the show started, I was over there. We were having a very heated debate about this topic among a few others, but I disagree. I disagree with the entire thought process. You don't want to take. There's something we said for discoverability. You should go into a raid, into a dungeon, into a boss fight, and or like go out and farm monsters and discover what those things do. If the information's right in front of you, it's very convenient. Don't get me wrong, but it takes away the discoverability. And there's something that's something we've lost with the internet, and that's something we've lost over the course of time with MMOs. Also with how I think gear should work with a boss in the dungeon as well. So it contradicts with this as well. So I am very much against full transparency when it comes to what a boss can drop and what could do it. All that stuff. I'm more for discoverability and secrecy.
You know, I think this is a perfect opportunity for scientific nodes to shine.
Okay.
Because if scientific nodes in their little library or academy, I forget what the name of their special building is. I think it's both, actually. Like, well, it's a library, academy, something. Either way, when it gets to a certain level, it can start, along with keeping track of deeds done and places explored and things found and whatnot. It could also keep track of like loot and whatnot that dropped off of key rare mobs and dungeon bosses and such. But then if that scientific node gets dropped, if it gets leveled because they went into a node siege and someone destroyed it, then all that data would potentially be lost.
Right.
New scientific node. Hopefully another scientific node has been keeping track of some stuff in the local area, and maybe if another scientific node gets to Metropolis, it can start collecting that from all the other ones in its ZOI, you know?
A Library of Alexandria kind of situation. What if just like the relics, the information stored in said library became a lootable thing for the winning army as well?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I think that's really cool.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm of a different opinion about it when it comes to. I now think that with the kind of RTS kind of like building systems we have for nodes, that we shouldn't that node types shouldn't be a thing anymore. I think that they should be I don't like a lot of the superpowers. I don't like the idea of teleportation. I think teleportation should not be like family teleportation. World teleportation shouldn't be a thing. Faster travel's fine, like carts and monster and like mountains and stuff like that. But I think that if you're going like some of the power, I think some of the powers I think should be more spread out. So the RTS kind of building, like if you want to build a library, if your node wants to build a library, maybe build a library. I think every node should have the bounty hunter system. It shouldn't just be military nodes. So I'm of a opinion that we should revisit the thought process of node types and instead have a more node building gives power, and more of that RTS kind of build my node, how our mayor builds the node, kind of how is more convenient for the people.
So, before I say my opinion, Roka says, I'm going to just go back and forth on how I pronounce her name. I'm sorry. I don't think there should be a pre-made drop table from Intrepid side for every monster, but I'm pretty sure, or I'm sure the players will make a website of their own by their own experience. And I agree with this. I think what I was going to say, not that this is my opinion on the subject, but what like my opinion on the community is, if Intrepid doesn't do it, somebody's going to do it, right? In the name of content, somebody is going to do it. Hey, for my drop guides, check out over here,
100%.
But, okay, thank you. But my opinion on the matter is very similar to Vertex, but I do like that this is rewarded to you in game, because again, each server is going to be different. So what if the drop rate is different based on what is going on in the world, right? So let's just go with an herb that might be gathered. For example, in server A, they have farmed their herbs. They've gathered a lot of herbs, and that herb is a little bit more rare. And because of that, the drop chance of this mob dropping that herb is a lot lower compared to server B, who hasn't gathered as many herbs. Herbs.
Herbs.
As server A has. So Z's over there picking on me. I just think it'd be kind of cool for server B's boss to have a higher drop chance because they didn't gather the herbs as much as server A did. But I also like your idea, Yokai, of but sorry, I'm laughing at chat.
Okay.
I also like Yokai's idea about the node system. If you have a scientific node that has gathered X amount of data from playing and farming and fighting these mobs, and then you go to siege that, it's kind of almost like the winner gets the spoils kind of thing, and you get to have like a portion of the knowledge before it gets wiped. So it's almost like the whole, like, this is what we could recover from their archives before everything else went to flames, or vice versa. How cool would it be for your window of preparing for a siege is trying to save a portion of that data that you can take with you to the new node?
100, yeah, 100%. I agree with that. To the thing about like the content creators will make the drop table thing. Someone will make a website. It'll be on the wiki. It'll be posted on the wiki because Lex does such a good job curating the wiki and stuff like that. I still think that's part of the discoverability though. I do like the idea of it being stored in the thing, but I also think that also, because that's a member of the node reporting back to the library and curating that information. Again, that feeds into the discoverability of the node. They're sharing that information with the library. I think also that we're probably going to see, based on how the event system works and how they've described that kind of thing, that based on like, if it's raining, or what time of season it is, or if a story event is queued, that the drop tables will change based on that thing, to where the loot may change entirely. So you have this iron set that, or like dragon set that's at the raid, but because a storm is happening, the dragon is now thunder charged, and now you have an electric thing, or it's a nighttime daytime thing. So like depending on the time of day you raid, you'll get the nighttime daytime set or drop tables, and the seasonal drop tables, and the events and the event stuff and stuff like that, so on and so forth. Based on the raid and whatever they decide they want to do with that whole system.
Yeah.
No, should probably scoot along to the next topic, but I did really quick wanna make a comment on your your mention of wanting to take the nodes back to basically the mayor builds them up as they wish. I think it might actually be a benefit to keep it how it is, just because if one mayor to the next decides to completely revamp everything, you decided to make a certain node your home, and now a mayor is absolutely wrecking it by just changing the type. And it's not like a wrecking it that could get them ousted or in trouble. It's actually built into the game, so it could end up really destroying where people try to plant their freeholds, where they try to plan to do a lot of stuff with their guild, etc. I think that could have huge implications there.
I see your point with that, and like I said, I know I'm in the minority with my viewpoint. We are already in that kind of situation though, because of how the artisan trees work and the artisan stations, where like if you already have to build based on the node stream that they did, you have to build very specific buildings to be able to craft very specific things within the node. Whereas if someone goes back and changes that, your entire planning phase for that node is already changed. So we're already in that world. We're already in the world you just described.
Yeah. So on the topic of sieging another node, kind of in the same vein with like guild v guild, DMN _ on the forums had a few different ideas in reference to other games on how guild versus guild works, and I will allow you all to read all of that. But the takeaway that I wanted from this is their question at the end: how do you envision GVG landscape in Ashes of Creation, and what elements from other games would you like to see embraced or avoided?
GVG landscapes and stuff like that. I would like to see the territory system. Steven's already described a very, very interesting way of doing it. They're fixing mistakes that I think they're taking a very large step from what ArcAge did. ArcAge's GVG system, you could deck, your guys could leave, and like based on like you kill a bunch of people, and then you're ahead, and then you just like have all your guys log off and do. Whereas in like the GVG system that Steven's explained how he wants it, is more objective based. You're going in there, you're defending objective. It's more an actual war game of you're defending your territory and things, similar to how it would work in like an EVE Online kind of scenario, or I'm drawing a blank on other war games right now that do this, but I think they're definitely taking the approach from what ArcAge does, the main game that Ashes is kind of taking inspiration from, and fixing all the problems with that system.
Yeah. Thank you for the lick, Nuclear.
Lick.
Yeah. Cheers, Nuclear. Nuclear.
Nuclear.
Nuke.
Nuclear.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. This is one of the questions that I really don't know much about, mainly because I haven't really been involved in any game that had organized guild versus guild type activities.
Yeah, same.
So there were some things that were organized by members of the game itself, like players of the game that would, just say, hey, we need to take a drink of water because he's giving us a hydrate and a stretch. But our guild would organize stuff and say we got to go do this and that because we're gonna go have fun, and by the way, we're also quote unquote at war with this other guild, so we're gonna happily coordinate with them to meet on the field of battle, and that's about it. So I honestly have no idea. Like I played Ragnarok Online, but I never got to any guild versus guild content. That game was also like 712 years ago too, so things may have changed since then. Yeah, I'd like to see it as open world as possible to match raids being open world.
That's fair.
Let the player friction happen,
Perhaps you might have more of an opinion on this one then. This was from our own friend, Sulfrin, around data obscurity in Ashes. So how much data do you think should be a person should be able to see or hide in the case of Ashes? What side of the fence are you on when it comes to obscuring others' access to data? So would you like to be able to hide your health and mana from other players? Would you like to be able to hide the armor you're using from other players, etc.?
This was the very, very heated debate that I literally just came from in the Discord. We were literally I had like two sides debating this topic very, very, very fiercely. Personally, I don't want to see the health bar above somebody's head. I don't think Steven wants it either. He has the name plaque thing. I would like to see where you can ambush somebody in the dark instead of having a gigantic health bar or nameplate above their head that kind of reveals where they are. And I'm a Monster Hunter player, so being able to telling people's health, not seeing the enemy's health is kind of like a plus to me as well. In terms of being able to see people's what gear they're wearing, there's pluses and minuses to this. I think that I prefer a system in a perfect world. I prefer a system where you don't see where you don't see the loot, the gear someone's wearing. I think it allows people it allows the person that's doing the discoverability, someone that's building a build and stuff like that, to have that they've gone through the thing of tier theory crafting. They've gone through all the research. They found the perfect set, and so now someone can't just look at their set and try to copy them, kind of thing. But that doesn't always work, right? You're like if a set's broken, if a set's if there's a bug or an exploit with a thing, it helps that other people can see what the build is and be able to point out hey, that thing's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. I need to report that, or more people know about it so it gets reported faster, or more people are using it. So not only one person has a monopoly on the knowledge, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It also is more friendly to the casual audience, right? Because the example that I just gave of having that doing the research and having the build diversity thing, that's not something for everybody, right? That's something for the more hardcore no lifer audience. The more casual audience, I think it's more friendly for them to be able to see what somebody's build is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Now, I am of the opinion with this stuff that I don't need to see specific stats and everything for somebody unless they feel like sharing them. So it'd be kind of cool if they wanted to purposely say hey, let me open up my stats for someone to see. Let me open up my armor stuff for people to see and all. But outside of that, if you think about it, in this real life place, and even honestly everywhere except anime, you can get a decent feel for what kind of shape somebody's in after they take some hits, right? Mm-hmm. You may not know how many hits they can take, but once they take a good number and you start to see them they're bleeding from stuff and their eyes are drooping and they're starting to stagger, you get a good idea on how healthy they are, right?
Visual clarity,
you should definitely have some kind of an indicator on how healthy they are at that moment. At any given time, you should have a decent idea. Now, as far as specific numbers, no, you wouldn't know that. You would just have a general idea. And I think the color coded and cracking health bars they were talking about might be a decent way to do that. I don't know. I like the idea of it, I'll say, but we'll see how well it works.
So, I didn't know how I felt about this topic originally. But I recently have been playing, it's completely unrelated. It's not even an MMO. I'm pretty sure it's, I don't know, a roguelite maybe? I don't know. But it's called Death's Door. You have no health bar when you're fighting enemies. You just can tell how hurt they are because the enemy's body itself begins cracking. And so sometimes it's easier to tell how much health an enemy has. And other times I'm like, oh, I don't know. Is it almost dead? And then I hit it one more time and it does the whole slow down thing to show that it was the last hit. And it feels amazing every single time. But this kind of also brings me back to D&D, right? So when you play tabletop games and role-play games like Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, there's no health bar when you're playing. You don't see that. The DM sees it. The game system will see it, but you as the player don't see it. And it's up to the GM to kind of express as you attack it with your daggers, it starts bleeding profusely and it looks on the verge of death. That's a good indicator of it's almost dead. Versus you hit it and it now has only 12 hit points left. But also as a GM, I kind of do my best to be like, it's looking pretty bad. It's looking like it could fall over any moment, to kind of indicate like, don't go heavy with a big spell on this thing. It's almost dead. Like, don't waste that spell slot, basically.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm very interested in seeing how it would work in Ashes of Creation. So very excited.
Yeah. I like being able to like see people's armor, even if you can't see stats about it. Like, it should be, you should be able to identify it by vision and say, hey, I've seen that armor before. That looks like insert whatever armor. Now you know what they're wearing, even though it didn't spell it out in letters and stats and everything for you.
I know there are a few members of the community that don't really like people being able to inspect their armor and things like that.
It's considered a little
invasive,
invasive and elitist, right? Because some raids and wars will literally tell you can't come into our thing because you don't have the right thing, and so people like to hide that stuff. There's arguments on both sides for and against it.
That's fair. I would mainly want to hide it because I'd want my cosmetic to show through, because I worked hard to put together an outfit.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I'd want to hide it. No other reason, honestly.